Welcome to Crossing Faiths. I'm John Pinna, and today we have a really interesting guest from Bethlehem, Laila Alsheikh, who is speaking to us about a really interesting organization that she came to get involved in it called the Circle of Parents. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And
So,
thank you for having us or me today.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. And we were chatting a little bit before, and all I kept saying was, how fresh is the fruit in Bethlehem right now? It just must be it's just a different taste, right? It's just a different. We don't have the same thing here. When I was living in Afghanistan, the eggplant, the fruit, everything spoils in like a day and a half because there's nothing added to it, but the flavor is unbelievable. So
yeah, I was born in Jordan, and I lived there for 22 years. But when I came here, the taste of every kind of vegetables, food is totally different.
It is. You guys have cauliflower that's like this big.
Yeah,
I remember seeing it on the side of the road. It was like so big, and because we have cauliflower, it's like a little shot of cauliflower. I don't know what's going on, but it was so big on the side of the road. I go, what's going on? So I drove over, and I go, who's making this much cauliflower? So we
love it so much.
I know, right? So, the food flavor. So I'm going to try to stay on track and talk about our serious conversation, but I am in the back of my head thinking about, shawarma like this big and fresh fruit and vegetables that have flavor. Yeah.
By the way, my village called Batir, and my village is famous with one kind of eggplant called Batiri eggplant, and it's have the great taste, the color. It's amazing. I hope one day you could come here and you will taste it.
I mean, you could send me pictures of vegetables and I would be like,
I will.
Maybe that'll be my second or third wife, would be the aubergine, to be the eggplant, a nice curvy eggplant. So, sorry, but in any event, I appreciate you playing along. So here we are, Circle of Parents. So Circle of Parents is an organization that works between Israelis and Palestinians on reconciliation, and so I thought it would be appropriate to kind of bring you on to just talk a little bit about the organization and your journey to kind of get there, and what does that mean. So maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about what they are, what the organization is, and what they do, what their mission and sort of vision is.
Well, first of all, the name of the organization, the Parent Circle of Bereaved Families from Palestine and Israel. We are maybe the unique organization, or the only organization didn't seek for a new member, because to be a member, that means that you lost one of your beloved ones, and we don't hope that anyone lost his beloved ones. Our organization established in 1994. The person who have that idea called Ishaq Frankenthal. When Hamas kidnapped his son, Eric, they kidnapped him for 3 days, and after that, they killed him. So he didn't seek for revenge, and he had that thought to establish this organization for bereaved family. First of all, he started with Israeli just. Then he started to think that he can't do reconciliation just with Israelis. He needs the Palestinian to join this organization. So he started with people from Gaza. And after Hamas take control of Gaza, they are not allowed to talk to the Israeli or to meet them. So they prevented the Palestinian to be in this organization. So he started to bring people from the West Bank. So we are more than 800 families, not individual. Before the war, we've been just 600, and we thought that Many families were left after the 7th of October, but just 3 families left, and many, many others joined the parent circle. We try to work in peace and reconciliation. We believe of the power of reconciliation. And we believe that the people who suffer daily from this occupation, we as Palestinian and the Israeli, if we could put our effort together, start to talk to each other. So when our leaders decided to have peace agreement, everyone will be ready to accept that, or at least most of us. Because when we have Oslo agreement, it was failed because no one was ready to accept it. Like just one day we woke up and they start to talk about peace. No one was ready to accept that. But now we believe it's the time to put end to all of this conflict and this conflict,
Right.
because we lost thousands of people from both sides. And we believe that God created us to love and to live, not to kill each other. So because of that, we believe that we couldn't just sit side and watch and wait our leaders to do something. We decided to have a step and to start doing something, even if that just that little, but we believe that the road of 1 mile starts with one step.
Right. No, it's a worthwhile cause. I mean, the challenge is like a very big counter narrative, right? Everybody says that there's all this animosity. I mean, even when I was there in Israel and spending some time in the region, there's quite a bit of a wellspring between Muslims, Christians, and Jews with talking, and then within obviously Gaza and the West Bank, there's relationships that exist, and then
Yes.
then you have this shared bond through tragedy of the death of a family member as a result of conflict, and the parent circle amplifies those relationships by directing that grief in a positive direction. Is that fair to say?
I remember when I came here in 1999, the Israelis came to our shops and they buy whatever they want. We go to Jerusalem anytime we want. And we have a great life before 2000. But I think there's some people in the government who didn't want this peace to be happened here. And they have benefit from this occupation to keep going and to have war every like 2 years, 3 years, because the 7th of October, it's not the first one. And some people said that now we want a ceasefire, but we believe it's not the solution to have just a ceasefire. We need to put agenda or to do something to have a solution. We can't continue our life like that.
Yeah.
Like in this war, many people lost their life. Many people their life destroyed. We can't keep living like that. Especially we are the people who suffer daily from this occupation, because we believe that our leaders on both sides, they are not could I say that they don't care about us really. Like when this war started, Netanyahu sent his son to Miami, and Mahmoud Abbas sent his family to Jordan, and people from both sides were really shocked because like you just care about your family. What about us?
Right.
So I think it's time now to say enough is enough, to start to find a solution.
What do you think what would be as an outline or a roadmap towards heading towards a solution in your own mind? What would you like to see?
In fact, I don't care about the solution. If it's one state, two states, thousands of states, this is not what I think about. What I want and what I think and what I need to have equal life, equal rights, to have freedom, to end this occupation, to remove all of these checkpoints and return back like before 2000, when there was no any checkpoint, all the road was open. You can you can have freedom of movement, but now it's very difficult. And some people think when I said in the occupation that we will finish all the Israelis. This is not the truth. When we talk about end occupation, it's about to live side by side, put our effort together to create a beautiful life, a good life, not just for us, not just for our children, but even for the generation who will come after us. And when they ask themselves what they did to change this reality, we didn't want them to live the same life. We didn't want them to suffer like us.
Right. Well, so I mean, that's an interesting point to make because a lot of people talk about two-state solution, and as if that's the answer, because there's a lot of mechanics that go into a two-state solution. A lot of people don't talk about what that means. Because if you still have a two-state solution with a wall between you, it's the same thing. There's no real difference. I mean, this is one of the conversations that I have in some of the policy circles. I go, I don't know. I don't really know what a two-state solution would look like, and then where's the line drawn? Like, who knows? It's
Yeah.
it's a, I mean, it's the worst real estate deal to negotiate, because this everybody has to lose in order to gain, and it's a very, very difficult solution. But
And do you know the people, they don't understand the geographic, not just the politic or the situation here, but even the geographic here. It's very complicated
yeah,
to make two state. So there will be many work to do that. I believe, in my beliefs, if if there's one state solution, that will be much better for both of us because we need to learn how to live side by side.
yeah.
We
No, and we know,
can't be separated. We can't. This is so hard, really.
yeah, and well, and you look at the map, just just from a bird's eye view. I'm not talking about getting too much into the mechanics, but you got Gaza here, you got Jerusalem, and then the West Bank. And it's very complicated. Then you got the North, where it's a budding, Lebanon and Syria, and so that's got its own situation. So if you make something in the South, you make something in the North, it depends. And there's all these different pitfalls, and it's very, very difficult, the geography on how to settle things and figure out. And nobody's gonna. Some people might like it, but a lot of people won't. And but what you're saying is not necessarily innovative. Muslims and Jews have lived side by side forever, and this is just a recent anathema related to political Islam and political, Judaism, or the Israel state. I mean, and so living side by side is not something that's an anathema. It's something that was very common and still very common. We do it here. I mean, I'm a New Yorker. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. I mean, I went to more bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs than I did anything else when I was a kid. So, but maybe we take a step back and we talk a little bit about your journey. Like, so on getting to the circle, the parent circle, what was this? It wasn't something that you just decided to get involved in. Obviously, you had a death in the family, but it wasn't your initial sort of idea to go and start and be part of this organization. So let's maybe talk a little bit about that.
So my story started even before I was born. My family, they are originally from Bethlehem, and they went to Jordan because my father was working with UN, and they sent him to Jordan to work with children in the refugees camp. He was a teacher. And after that, the war started in 1967. And during that time, the Israeli government closed the border and prevented the Palestinians to return back. So because of that, me and my other siblings were born in Jordan. But I love Palestine. From what I heard from my father, he has thousands of stories about his childhood, about his relative, about school, about everything, about life. So I love Palestine from what I heard from my father. And for me, it's become like a dream.
Hmm.
So after I finished my study in accounting and business, I met my husband. He's originally from Bethlehem too. So that dream come true. We returned back here in 1999. We get married, and I thought the life here will be amazing. The first year was really amazing. I visited most of the places that my father speak about. I visited his family members, many people. And our happiness become much more when we have our first daughter. And as you know, when you start to have children, you start to think about their future and have plans. And so after that, after 2 months, the second uprising started, which we called it Intifada. And during that time, the Israeli government take a decision not to give people who came from Arab countries like me a Palestinian ID. So that meant that I can go freely from place to place. Most of the time, I should stay at home. I can visit my family in Jordan. But I didn't care too much because I have my husband, my daughter to take care of and to be busy with. Our happiness become much more second year when we have our second son. He was a boy. His name was Qasai, and you know, I was become happier to have both of them. Start to think about their life, their future. But that happiness ended 11th of April 2002 when my son became 6 months old. At that night, the Israeli soldiers came to my village and they threw tear gas. And because he was too young, his lungs couldn't handle that. And the treatment in my village wasn't good enough. So when we tried to take him to Bethlehem, and Israeli soldiers prevented us and they said it's a military zone, you can't enter. So the next option was to take him to Hebron, the next city to Bethlehem. But again, they told us that the main road is closed. Uh, so after that, we start to think, what kind of option do we have? So the only option we have that we should take him between villages, but the road will be rough and long, but that was the only chance that we have. But again, for the third time, an Israeli checkpoint stopped us. The soldiers start to check the ID of my husband, my father-in-law, because my father-in-law, he's the only one who speaks Hebrew at that time. And he tried to convince them that we should be in a hospital as soon as possible because our son in very critical condition, but they didn't listen to us. They asked us to stay in the car for more than 4 hours. And during that time, I started to think to take a risk, and that risk that if they know that I didn't have a Palestinian ID, maybe they will take me to jail or send me back to Jordan. But at that time, I just care about how could I save my son? How could I do something for him? So when I talked to them, they start to make fun of me and they asked me to stay in the car. So we stayed in the car more than 5 hours. So when we reached the hospital, the doctor said it's too late to save his life. And if he will stay alive after 48 hours, he will be handicapped. A few hours later, the doctor came and he told us that um, he passed away. I remember his word was like a bullet comes to my heart, smash it down for many pieces, start to cry like crazy because as a mother, I thought that I could save my son. I could do whatever I can to protect him. But that was the time that I feel hopeless. I couldn't do anything. Few minutes later, the house was full of people, relatives, neighbors, friends. But I was just scared. Sorry.
It's okay.
I just care about my son. Then I start to convince myself that when we return back home, I slept in the car and this is just dream. And next day I will wake up and bring my son back home. But unfortunately, that was the truth. That night, the same night, I've been so tired. I slept maybe just for 5 minutes, and I saw a white dove came stand on my shoulder and said to me, "Mama, don't cry. I'm so happy." I know that he's happy because he's just 6 months old. But I don't understand at that time why he came as a white dove. So after that, for more than 3 years, my husband, my family convinced me to have other child and I refused. And one day my doctor asked me, why didn't you want to have other children? I say, why I will have them if finally I will lose them? They will be part of this cycle of violence, even if I didn't want to. But after these 3 years, I have another boy. I give him the same name, Hussein, because I didn't want to forget any details about what happened. Every time I look to his eyes, every time I call his name, after this kind of tragedy, you thought that you will live again like before that, but it's not the same life. You always felt there's something missing, part of your heart, part of your soul is not there. But I try. So after 16 years, I met one of my friends that I didn't saw for a long time. And then we started to talk about life, about many things. And then he started to talk to me about how he joined the parent circle and he asked me to join. I said, "Are you crazy? You know what happened to my son? How could you ask me to be with Israeli and this organization?" And he said, "I want to ask you a question. Why until now you didn't tell your other children about what happened to their brother?" I said, "Because I didn't want them to be part of this cycle of violence, because maybe if they know, they start to think to take revenge, and I'm not ready to lose another one. I lost one of them, and that was much more than enough for me." Then he like keep calling me every 3 days, 4 days, speak about the organization. Um, and I let him just talking. I didn't want to really hurt that, but I don't want to stop him. So one day he called me and he said, "There's a conference in Bethlehem and you should come for the parent circle." I said, "Yeah, of course," just to make him stop talking about that. And that day in the morning, I started to think what kind of excuse that I should tell him because I really didn't want to go there. And then he called me and he said, "Get dressed. I'm waiting you on the car. I don't know. I know that you tried to find excuse and you didn't want to go there." I said to myself, "Oh my God, he will never leave me alone. I should go there just to make him stop talking about this." So when we arrived there, first of all, there were just Palestinian. We said we talk and everything was normal. 5 minutes later, when the Israeli tried to enter that room, I felt something so painful happen in my chest. I didn't want to be with them in the same room. I tried to leave. Then my friend asked me just to sit, to listen. Since we were arguing about that, I said something amazed me when I saw the Palestinian and the Israeli hug each other, kiss each other, laugh with each other like a family member. And I said to myself, "Oh my God, how could they do that? They are so crazy." Then I decide to sit to listen to them because I want to know what's the thing that make them so close to each other like that. So when the Palestinians start to talk about how they lost their beloved ones, that was something normal for me because I heard these kind of stories. I know like most of them. But when the Israelis start to talk about how they lost their beloved ones, I was really touched and moved because that was the first time I listened to a bereaved Israelis, how they lost their beloved ones. I heard about their pain. And for the first time, I looked at them as a human like me, not as enemy. For the first time, I felt we share the same pain, we share the same tears, even if we had different circumstances, but we're still human. And nothing worse than losing a child or a family member. And no one could understand that pain unless someone be in the same situation. So from that day, I decided to participate one of the project to learn much more about the Israeli, because as a Palestinian, most of the time I just met soldiers and you can't like talk to them. Maybe the only thing that you will talk about, they will ask you about your ID or if you have permit, or they will ask you where are you going. This is the only chat that you have. So I joined that project which called Barrel Narrative Project. It's about to give a chance for both sides to sit, to listen, to share, to learn. We met for 8 times during 3 months. We visited uh, Yad Vashem Museum in Jerusalem to learn about the Holocaust, because many Palestinians, they deny the Holocaust and they thought that the Israeli fake it because they want to justify what they are doing in Palestine. And we even visited a Palestinian village was existed before 1948, because even the Israeli thought that they came to an empty land. We have two professors from both sides, one Israeli, one Palestinian, to speak about the history of the two nations. And we have many activity. So the first one, they asked us to speak about something happened during the conflict affect our life. And that was the first time I spoke about what happened to my son. Even between me and my husband after his death, we didn't spoke about him. And that was so hard for me, even after 16 years. It's it's like to open the wind again, bring the memories, the anger, the pain, everything. I couldn't complete the story. I started to cry. And then an Israeli woman came forward and she started to apologize. And she said to me, yeah, I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you from my people. I'm a mother too. I could understand your pain. I could understand the word that you couldn't say. And she came and hugged me. Both of us started to cry. And to be honest, that was the first time I felt someone really care about me. Someone really could understand my pain, even if I didn't say a word. From that day, I decided to continue that project. I decided after that to be a member on the forum, start to give lecture inside Israel, Palestine, travel around the world to spread the message of peace and reconciliation. And I thought I made everything right and everything will be perfect. But 4 years ago, I've been in Jerusalem with other colleagues, and we've been gathered with other people from the state, from Europe, the other organization. And after we spoke about our personal stories, there's an Israeli man who stand up and he started to talk about his personal story. I know him many years ago, but that was the first time I listened to his story. And then he mentioned that he was a high officer in the army and he served in my area. And then he mentioned that he prevented a Palestinian car which have sick children from going to a hospital. Then it's become real. It's
Hmm.
become in front of me. It's like someone slapped me in my face. I didn't know what to do or to say because in my whole life, I didn't thought that I would meet one of those soldiers and to be him in front of me. I really didn't know what to do or to say. I just started to cry. And then one of our friends asked both of us to go outside to speak. Then he said, look, Layla, this is so important for me. I know this is hard, but I need to tell you that part of my story. And then he mentioned that after time, his son became very sick. And when he tried to take him to a hospital, the guard stopped him because he want to ask him a few questions. And he said to me, just then I realized what I did to the Palestinian. He quit from the army. He refused to serve again. They sent him to jail because of that. And after he released, um, he established a new organization called Combatant for Peace with ex-Palestinian fighters or prisoners. And he started to work on the ground to end the occupation, to start to work in the fields to end this conflict. So I looked to him and I said, look, Hen, his name is Hen, this is so hard for me to listen to you. But at the same time, I want to thank you that you didn't hide that part of your story. And because I know you and because I know what you are trying to do, and because you have that honesty and that courage to speak in front of me, I could forgive you. Then I realized this is reconciliation, the real reconciliation. It's so easy to speak about love, peace, and all these lovely words, but sometimes we ask ourselves if we meant every word we say or everything we did. And that day I realized this is what I want and this is what I need to do in my life. And then I remember that dream that I told you about my
Yes.
son and the white dove. And then I realized that white dove is the symbol for peace. And I realized that was kind of message from God to tell me this is your new mission. And he didn't want the death of my son went without achieving something. So I did this not just to protect my children, not just to protect my people, even anyone, anywhere in this world. When we spread this message, it's not just about the conflict here, but it's about any kind of conflict. I don't want anyone to be in the same situation because this is one of the hardest experience anyone could have. And some people think by time you will cure and everything will be okay, but this is not true because by time it's become harder and harder, especially now when sometimes I see I saw the children at the same age of him who born in the same time. And I looked at them and I imagine if he's still alive, how he looked like, what kind of job he could have, what kind of study. It still hurt,
Difficult,
but
yeah.
because we believe in God and we believe this is what a God chose for us, we just say Alhamdulillah about everything.
I appreciate you taking the time to kind of walk us through how your journey to this organization and the work that you've done. I mean, it's not easy, to be on the ground and because it becomes it's something that you're carrying with you all the time. Like we're talking about it now and unpacking it, and it's not a comfortable space. There's always the element of grief that's associated with it, but you've done a lot of wonderful things, right, as a result of this engagement, and in the name of your son, and then in the name of his presence. And so, what's when it comes to like your day to day, like what you say, you travel around the world, and you just what is it that you do? How do you operationalize? You talk, you engage people on an individual basis. So you're speaking about like we're speaking now, and that's what this conversation is about. But how do you operationalize and keep your son's memory alive, and to operationalize the mission of the organization?
When we travel, always many people invited us, church, synagogue, mosque, even schools, even we've been in the States many times, and the campus.
Yeah.
Many universities invited us. It's not about just our conflict. It's even about to talk to them about not brought this conflict to your country. I know that you have enough problem to deal with, and we don't want anyone to how could I say that? Like to import the conflict to your country, because this is will never help us in any way. Like if they pro Palestine or if they pro Israel and they fight together, how could that help me or help Guy? This will never
Right.
help anyone. But if they pro peace, this is what we want and this is what we need.
Right.
And something happened in one of the meeting in the state. Uh, some people asked us to give them hope. And I started to laugh and I said, you asked the people who came from a war zone to give you hope in the United States. It should be the opposite. But anyway, I
Right.
will give you hope
Right.
because
Well,
we believe we still have hope because we know this will end one day. We didn't know when, we didn't know how, but we believe it will end one day.
yeah, it's very difficult. Everybody says, you have to pick a side, and
Yes.
who deserves to live and who deserves to die, right? Like that's kind of, when you pick a side, that's kind of the logic model, and I always, my stance is, it was very interesting because I always say, like, everything that's needed to be said has been said, and somebody needs to start making decisions, you
Yeah.
know and that's the challenge with this. It's like, if you don't have a pony in the race other than goodwill, right, and caring about
Yeah.
dignity and all this other stuff, how you got to get the right people together to actually figure something out, and it's so difficult. But when it's pick a side, that's not going to work.
Yeah. And I always said to them, when God created the world, he said to Adam, go and have this land for you and for your children. He didn't say for Muslims, he didn't say for Jews, he didn't say for Christian, he said to all your children.
Right.
So we don't have that enough time to waste in just killing each other and do bad things to each other. The time that we have, I think we should um, try to build beautiful future, a good future, and not just for ourselves, but even for the generation will come after us.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, when Ibrahim, they said, the land of Israel is for, your children. It's Jacob, it's Ishmael, and I think there's like maybe 5 or 6 off-brand children that are Abraham's children. I can't remember their names right now, but all of them are supposed to be kind of occupy that area. And so So here's a question for you. So the challenge is like, look, right now, obviously there's a tremendous conflict going on as a result of October 7th. How has your work become amplified as a result of the current conflict?
In fact, it was hard, but now become much harder because before even the 7th of October, um, um, Bengvir always, we have the same meeting that we have now, but at schools in Israel. So always when we have these kind of meetings, he brought some of the families, the parents, and they protest outside the school, and he call us terrorists, and he even called the Israeli who've been with us. They are betrayed, and they make normalization, and all these kind of stuff. But now when they become in the government, that become much harder even. First of all, we couldn't have permit to go inside Israel. They prevented the Israeli to come to the Palestinian areas. We can't make dialogue meeting at schools. Now we are prevented from doing that. We can't even gather the Palestinian and the Israel like before. Now we just have Zoom meetings. Many of our projects now stop because we can't be together. And we have the summer camp every year to the children from age 14 until 18. And last summer we did it in Cyprus because the children couldn't
Uh,
be here together. So imagine to take 30 child to Cyprus with other people to help them. It's become very difficult, really.
well, I appreciate you taking, like the time to talk about it, because it's like, these are things that people don't know, is like there is an opportunity to speak about reconciliation, but from multiple perspectives, from like you said, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim perspective. There are people in country that have the will to do this, and the voices are not being amplified. And like you said, your work's become harder. It should be your work should be front and center, as opposed to all the slogans that are happening out there. I mean, what's your message to the world? I mean, like you're this, we have, we're going to mint the podcast and send it out, but if you're, how do we, how do you, how do we, how do people get in touch with the organization? How do people get in touch with you? What is the next steps? What are the most important things that people can do to support this type of engagement?
We have a website. I think if you ask Leora, she could send it to you.
Sure.
Sorry. She could send it to you, and they could saw our work, and they could have a contact with the organization. And my message to everyone in this world, if you couldn't be part of the solution, please don't be part of the problem, because we have enough problem to deal with, and
Right.
we don't need other people to be involved. And if they could convince their countries to invest all that billions of dollars to make peace, not to send weapon for us, because we don't need this kind of weapon.
I think I mean, it's a very point. It's like very specific. That's the thing. A lot of people say, well, it's very complicated. Oh, there's no solution. It's start transferring the funds from weapons, keep them on funds coming, but instead turn that into something else. I mean, and start, and then if you're not going to be part of the solution, yeah, you shouldn't be involved. That's how I always felt, is like, I can't negotiate a deal between Israelis and Palestinians. And I've been doing some of this government work for a long time, and I was always very hesitant. I go, I don't have a pony in the race, and so we need to kind of figure out a way to do this. All I do know is that you need to stop the conflict and get stakeholders involved that are willing to talk and have peace. And your group of 700 families are probably are the most adept at understanding the sacrifice that's made as a result of bad decisions.
Yes.
And I think that's
I
one.
remember the first visit to United States. We've been in Alabama and I forget the word, or the area. We've been in the South to learn about slavery. I know about slavery, but it was like a chance to learn much more, to visit places and heard the stories from people. And it was really hard for me, that experience. But at the same time, when we've been there in Mississippi and all these area, and I said, oh my God, how could the American government spend all of these billions of dollars to make war with other countries, but they should invest it here in their country to make a
Yeah.
better life for their citizens.
Yeah, no, it's a struggle we have here is, we're with the and it's a big debate in our government right now. I was just in Washington last week,
I know.
and it's like, what are we doing? With when it comes to pressing more of, I mean, we have a war economy, so we have a development economy, we have services, so it's like legal, education, and so forth. And so the challenge is that, how do we spin things in a different direction? And for the first time, tech has outweighed, is making more money than the military, than our industrial complex. And so there's a shift now, to a more peaceful way of interacting with the world. In the same respect, we're also a superpower, so a lot of people expect us to help. So that's part of the problem. It's part of the challenge. And but I think that it's very meaningful to turn around and say, how do you affect lives positively? Tell Sarah you'll make her a sandwich in a minute. We're almost done. We're almost done. So, but
Sorry for that. It started to happen since Corona.
uh,
Every Zoom I enter, she came, and especially from the 7th of October during the workers and the West Bank, there's many, many rockets fell down. In my village, there's like 10 rockets, because this rocket will never recognize if you're Palestinian and Israeli, and because we live side by side, and we have rockets from Hamas, from Iran, from Yemen, from even the Israeli Iron Dome. So there's even people killed in the West Bank, but I don't think on the media anyone talk about that, because we don't have shelter here in the West Bank. So you try to find a place to hide, but there's any safe place to hide in.
I think that's one of the biggest messages. Like, if the media needs to even-handedly address and cover these issues and see what's going on. But I think that I appreciate you taking the time, and it means a lot for you to share this with me. And what we'll do is we'll have to circle back with a follow-up conversation. Yeah.
Okay.